Hey, this is Nathan, founder of That's Entertaining and member over at the PSVG Podcast Network. Coming to you today solo. Wanted to do something for our listeners both on the That's Entertaining sphere as well as PSVG and the Make Us Better podcast community. So today I'm going to actually be giving you an audio review of a visual product. So it's going to be a little bit of an interesting concept, but I hope that you guys can find some good use out of what we're going to talk about here. So today we're going to talk about two products from Marseille, which are the mCables, the Gaming Edition and the Cinema Edition, which might be of interest to you as well. So first off, we'll talk about the Cinema Edition cable. Now, this cable is designed to upscale content, and the scaler is built into the cable itself. You plug in the cable between your Blu-ray player and your TV, and then you also plug in a USB cable on the TV end of the cable. That USB cable powers the chip that actually performs the upscaling. Now, what you're able to get is actually improved visuals by showing you the improvements on the screen from the source. Now, as I will play for you later with my interview with the CEO of the Marseille company, he suggests that you won't get the best content viewing when it's 4K to 4K. So if you have a 4K Blu-ray player to a 4K display, these cables may not be a solution for you. However, if you are broadcasting out 1080p or 720 or 480 to your display, as long as your display matches your output, you will have a benefit. And what that means is, if you have a 1080p TV and a Blu-ray player, this cable is for you. Or also, if you have a 720p or a 480p output type, this cable will give you some additional features for the video experience that you have. So on the box, it has a couple things that are the most impressive points. So pixel rejuvenation, they call it, cognitive local contrast, noise artifact reduction. There's also a film mode recognition, so it knows when you're playing a movie, and I'll assist you there. There's a 4K pixel processor, so it helps to upscale again within this chipset. And what's also interesting is that it has been certified by Technicolor. So you've seen a lot of the films that you've watched at the end of the movie, it'll say Technicolor. This has been certified by the same fine folks there. So it's a pretty interesting cinema edition of the cable. If you want to have some, you don't want to upgrade your TV just yet, or you don't want to upgrade your Blu-ray player to anything else, or let's say maybe you're just using an Apple TV and you're streaming content. A lot of that content is going to be 1080p content that you're streaming. So if you have a 1080p television, this cable will actually enhance your visual solution. Now, one thing to be mentioned about both of these cables is they are not exactly cheap. They are about $140, depending on the length of the cable that you get. So while that is an expensive prospect, they do actually work. So you're buying more than a cable here, and if you were like me, you remember monster cables and things like that, which used to be the thing back in the day. They were these thick cables, and they were supposedly supposed to be better because they were gold-plated and things like that. But these cables do actually process on them. They have a chip built into the system, or into the cable, which processes and scales, whereas the monster cables and things like that they charged $100 for, $150 for, were really snake oil. There's nothing there for you to really take advantage of as far as the process goes. So keep in mind that these are not what we would call cheap cables, but they are actually providing a benefit to you depending on your setup. Now again, these cables, as Emily says in our interview, do not support HDCP 2.2 or HDMI 2.2. That sounds better. The actual 4K content transferring from source to source. So that does HDR and things like that. So if you have like an Xbox One X and you have it hooked up to a 4K display, this cable would not be for you because you won't get the full benefit that your console can put out. So I just want to make sure that we're clear there. However, the visuals that you see are impressive, and they are actually doing things that typical cables don't do. Now, that's the Cinema Edition. We're kind of starting to get into the Gaming Edition. So let's talk about that. The gaming edition is really where I think you'll see a lot of the benefit. Now, this one is geared more towards anti-aliasing and improving those pixel densities and things like that. And again, this is going to be when your source is not 4K. So if you're playing on a PS4 Pro or an Xbox One X, outputting 4K to a 4K display, you're not going to see the benefit. However, if you are outputting to a 1080p display from an Xbox One X or PS4 Pro, it super samples down and has better density and also higher frame rate if you use those methods traditionally. And putting a cable in between, an mCable in between those two, would actually give you some benefit. So if you do not have a 4K TV but still have the Xbox One X and you don't use the 4K, you can actually still get the benefit with the mCable that you'll get here. The best example I've seen so far is when I played Mario Kart on my Switch. Yes, I actually did play my Switch. I think Donnie and Jason are about to faint right now if they're listening. So when you play Mario Kart on the Switch, it's actually a 720p out display and native. And when you look at that on the system, it enhances the visuals a little bit by getting rid of some of the jaggies that you would typically see, and also increasing, from my point of view, I saw increasing on the lighting as well. Now, that's not necessarily something that you would see on every display, but on my display, I did see that. And you can actually tell when you capture, if you do video capture on your computer, things like that, you capture from a standard HDMI cable to a display capture card. And then if you also use this mCable, you'll see the differences there as well by able to zoom in and actually seeing what the differences are between the two. Now, this is, again, an audio podcast, so this is not going to be the best display of the quality of these cables. However, as a videophile like myself and someone who likes technology and tries to keep abreast of everything and, has the 4K displays and the 1080s and everything that I got here, for me, it was enough of a bump to really see that this is actually pretty cool. The technology that you're getting here by plugging in these older consoles, I mean, that's where you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck is, and I'm not necessarily saying the Switch is an older console, it doesn't output in 4K, but by the Nintendo Switch, and everything kind of before that, that's not the Xbox One X or the PS4 Pro, you're going to see a benefit here by the anti-aliasing for sure that you get in there. And the nice thing is, when you plug these things in, it doesn't introduce any lag. And that's pretty important to note, because when we're gamers and we're playing, our favorite Overwatches and things like that, we are usually pretty concerned about our reaction time, and we don't like to introduce anything that could cause lag. Well, these guys are less than 1 millisecond to produce the effect. So you're not introducing any lag that's of note that you can actually see in your reaction time or in your eyes. If you can see it, let me know. I have a couple other things I'd like you to take a look at, because I mean that's pretty cool. You like a robot. You're like Terminator. It's pretty neat. So, but again, this is best with your Wiis, your PlayStation 3s and 4s, your Nintendo Switch, your Xbox 360s. The PS4 standard or the Xbox One S or the standard Xbox One, those are going to see benefits as well. But your biggest bang for your buck on the current gen is definitely going to be your Switch. Now, again, these cables cost $140. Is it worth it to you to get that extra bump out of it? That's the question that you're going to have to check out and see. But I can tell you that seeing is believing. When I first got these cables, and I heard about them in E3 2018 this year, being a former Best Buy employee and someone that kind of understands that the gimmickry behind a lot of the cables that are supposed to be better than other cables, I wrote it off a little bit, but was curious enough to kind of reach out and see what they actually had to say. And I was able to experience these firsthand, and I mean, it's weird, but they actually do work. So while the cost is high, if you want to get as much of an improvement as you can to your console that you love, your Switch. So Donnie, if you're sitting there and you're playing Zelda and you're loving it, and you really want to get everything you can, and you want to have a better cart night with the community, you can get this cable and you'll have a better experience when you're playing on the TV because it enhances it. I mean, it does. It does what it says. A lot of times these things come out and they sound too good to be true and they're just a cash grab. These, they actually work. Now, if you want to talk about the cost, I think the costing is a bit high at $140. I think that if they were to lower their cost or something to maybe about that $100 mark, that'd be a good point of entry to get more people talking about it, to have them understand how cool these cables are and the effects that they actually give you. So, as a whole, these are pretty neat cables. I hesitate really to call them cables. They are more scaling solutions. So they scale the content for you. There's the chip inside that does the processing. These are little. They're more than cables. To call them cables is a little bit of a disservice to the product itself. So I would say that if you have a budget for curiosity and want to see how these perform, they would be worth getting and checking out. You can get them at Marseille's website directly or at different vendors around and go from there. Like if you want to get them from a vendor site, just make sure that you could return them if you don't see the value, because it is an investment in cables. But it's something that is actually, it works. And you don't often see something work as advertised. Now, if you look on the box, there's, or even if you look at their website, they'll show you like this picture of a ship. It almost looks like the Normandy on the back of the box, and it has original rendering versus mCable enhanced rendering, and that's a bit of a stretch between those two. But there is a difference when you look close enough, and if that is important to you, if you're the kind of person that's sitting right up on your screen and you want to see less jaggy edges, this might be something that you're looking for. And again, it improves both the cinema edition, improves the film quality, and the game edition improves your gaming side. So depending on which you more favor, you may want to go one or the other. Now, to me, I would say if you were to go for one over the other, I would stay in the gaming side because it has the anti-aliasing built in too, which actually works pretty decently, and it enhances that lighting, like I said before. That's what I got out of it, but also just makes it look better on the tail end. So again, this is not for the people that have 4K TVs, that have 4K sources from like the PS4 Pro or the Xbox One X. This will not give you any benefit. You've already got the tip-top shape. Congratulations, you won. There may be something in the pipeline, as he'll comment on, that they might be able to do something in the future for us that have those type of setups as well. But for everybody else, this is for the people who still have the Xbox 360 or the Xbox One, or those generations that are still playing on the TVs that are 1080p displays. This is for them. This is where you see the benefit. Or, Donnie, this is for you. This is for you on the Switch. You want to see something better? You want to have an enhanced version of the Switch? Here you go. This is it. So that was my little review. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know. You can always hit me up on the Twitter world, or whatever it's called. I am at Voiced by Nathan. You can find the shows, respectively, at Entertaining Pod or at PSVG, and since, I've mentioned Xbox a couple times, at PSVG Xbox Empire. So feel free to go over there and give us follows. Let us know what you think of this review. Let us know if you got a pair, if you agree, if you disagree. I'd love to hear the conversations flowing. But again, these are pretty cool cables. And again, I hesitate to call them cables. I'll call them scaling solutions that will enhance your content. As long as, again, you don't have 4K to 4K. You're not going to get enhancements from these products. But if you have the 1080p display and sources, you will see some pretty cool improvements here. So that's it for today, for this review. I would like to thank Marseille for actually providing me with these cables, and for Amni for taking a little bit of time that you'll hear now for the interview to just talk a little bit more about the company, about the cables, about the product. Fascinating interview. I enjoyed talking with him and would love to in the future again. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for listening, and check out the interview to follow. I almost forgot to mention, actually I did forget, I'm editing myself back in now, so I didn't forget. But I want to tell you that if you go to Marseille's website, that is marseilleinc.com, and I know it's a word that may be a little hard to spell, so I'll spell it for you. It is MARSEILLEINC.com. If you go there and you decide that you want to purchase one of these cables, if you use the code TE4MCable, that is TE4MCABLE, you will get a discount on your product. So if you've listened to this review and you want to give it a shot, go ahead and hit in TE4MCable at their website. All right, now, seriously, this time, the interview with Amni, which was really cool. Hope you guys like it. Let me know, at Voice by Nathan on Twitter. Thanks. Bye.
Sounds good. Let's get started, my friend. No problem.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So just to begin, why don't you go ahead and tell us what your name is, who you are, and where you are.
Okay. So I'm Amin Shaban, founder and CEO of Marseille, Networks, and we are located in Silicon Valley in California.
Okay. Silicon Valley, the birthplace of all the technological advances, right?
Oh, yes. And I've been there for 20 years now or more.
Very cool. And are you based in like just the Bay Area or San Francisco City, or where at specifically?
No, the Bay Area, where, next to and between Intel and NVIDIA, where we build our own chips,
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Yeah.
So when you talk about these mCables here, what was the reason that you saw for a need for a product like this?
It really started with, it was not started with the mCable. The idea behind, and the truth is, when you really understand what we do, we are all about picture and sound experience, right? So it's more about the idea of the technology, which is what can we do to recreate at best the real world experience. And, that's a vision, and in technology get translated into filters, into how can we enhance the content, how can you create information. And then, you have the fundamental technology, and then where can you put it? And, the concept of upscaling, the concept of enhancing, it's not new. Like, for example, any video processor has to do into a TV, has to do some kind of enhancement. So the big question becomes like, if you build, so you need your chips to do this, because unfortunately, depending on the level of complexity of the algorithm, it's massive computing to create, in real time, no latency, no lag time, and so on. To enhance content, all of a sudden, somehow you need your own hardware acceleration. You're not going to be able to do it with a general purpose, CPU or even GPU in some cases, right? So then you end up having your chips. So Marseille ended up having our own chip. Now the question becomes, why will you put it inside a cable versus a TV versus an Apple TV versus a game console and that's always the interesting question that comes to us. So far, are you with me?
Yes.
Cool. So now to go, I'm giving you a long answer to a short question, but I think
it's fine with me.
It's good. Okay. So I think, so obviously to me, HDMI cable are commodity, right? It's like HDMI is a digital protocol. So at the end of the day, I don't care how shiny is the cable, you're not going to be able to enhance HDMI, right? You're not going to be able to enhance the content. So what we had, which is the crazy idea, was, if you talk in the case of cinema, for example, movie and so on, is unfortunately, even if I put the chip inside the TV, we as a consumer around the world, we upgrade our TV every 7 to 10 years. So the reality, if you tell me that Marseille can deliver technology that can upgrade my visual enhancement, my movie experience, and so on, and I can simply do it by replacing an accessory in the house, that is pretty cool, because if I buy the TV for 7 to 10 years, it's going to be the same performance. Now, all of a sudden, instead of fixing your TV, I fix something which is more fundamental, which is the content. And that's where actually the idea of the cable is elegant. I mean, it's cool, but in the meantime, it's very hard because as consumer, we all got burnt out by all the nonsense and, the marketing fluff of, get a shiny cable and, it's going to make you feel better. I mean, this is,
Right. It looks good, right? It has to be good.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's so hard. I mean, for us as, company in Silicon Valley, where we are a bunch of hardcore engineers, scientists, and we love this. I mean, we don't joke about video signal processing. And as a matter of fact, we know each other in this industry. So when you get a guy that gets the cable and you look at it and, he's comparing to, why will I pay, $99 to $100 or more dollars for an HDMI cable, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So did I answer your question?
Yeah, so basically you wanted to find a way to, instead of, replace the TV within that, before the 7 to 10 year mark, find a way to enhance that quality in the end.
You got it. And the way I look at it is kind of like, we are all familiar in U.S. with the concept of filtering water. You're not going to die if you drink most of the water that comes into the house. But some of us, we want better, we want healthier, and in the content is the same matter. I mean, it's always, what happened 10, 20 years ago almost now is when we discovered the first HD TV, you go to your favorite hardware store at that time, you buy the TV, you bring it home, you plug it into a source, and all of a sudden it doesn't look what you saw in the store, right? And the same is happening today. You go to Costco, you get your 4K TV, and you bring it home and you plug it, and the content you watch is still below Full HD resolution. So the idea is that filtering the content with a bunch of accessories, smart accessories that make it easy for the consumer plug and play, that's where we see a sweet spot for the company and for our customers.
Mm-hmm. So cool. being able to be in that little sweet spot, as you said, you have a little niche here, because I don't know of many people that have tried to venture out and actually put the scaling solution within the cable itself.
Oh no, of course, it's a crazy idea. I mean, I've been in this industry for the last 20 years, and the idea behind it is kind of like, 20 years ago, when we wanted to upgrade our product, our PC or whatever, we go to the store, and every time Intel will come up with a new processor, new memory, we will go and upgrade it. Now, this is no longer feasible, right? So to us is having a set of smart accessories that will allow you, to really bring true value in terms of picture and sound. That's where we think that there's something very interesting. I mean, like, for example, you take the case of a game console. I mean, you've got a given GPU, you're not going to be able to upgrade the performance of this thing, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where we're coming from. We're saying, we love the picture and sound, and I really mean it, and whatever we can do to allow you to upgrade, the same way as you will go to the hardware store and buy a new graphics card, in a simple plug-and-play solution, that's where we see a sweet spot. But, it's not something that it's very hard to do, because you need to be able to build your own chips, you need to be able to build your system, you need to be able, so this is pretty much, in a nutshell, what we do,
Mm-hmm. So when you think about these, the products like the mCables that you have now,
mm-hmm.
It's a pretty interesting design with being able to put it out there with a system on there and the USB to power it. What are you most proud of about these products?
I think, to me, is at the end is really it's more the result, what it does to me, right? When I watch content, I mean, we have some content when you look at what it does to jaggies, for example, the anti-aliasing that it does. You take a game console and you see the thing. Picture quality is addictive, right? Once you get hooked up to Retina display, you don't go back, right?
Right.
It's true, So to me, once you start to realize, once you notice the jaggies and on any content, and you see what mCable does, I mean, there's no way that you live without. You need it. And to me, when I see what it does on, if I talk about movie content on DVD, on streaming, on Blu-ray, I mean, it's really amazing. And then, of course, the simplicity of it, it's cool. I mean, I wish that HDMI spec was, more advanced than what than what it is. I mean, but where you didn't need to have the power, that you could power the chip without having a USB cable attached to the cable, right, to the processor. Overall, I think what excites me is really the results, what it does. I mean, it's honestly, it's like once you get hooked up to it, it's. I look on Blu-ray content, right? And you look at, for example, the film grain, the noise, and you see how things are filtered, and then you get used to, how the content should look like. It's good. It's really. I mean, I always repeat. There's a French or Chinese proverb, depending to who you speak. You show them the moon, they get stuck on the finger, right? To me, mCable is the finger, man. It's just the beginning of the conversation. Really, what we see this amazing opportunity. Constantly, keep on raising the bar until we will be at the point where we can recreate at least the real world experience, if it's not better, And that's how So I think mCable it's smart, but I have to say, I don't know if you saw, like, there's a lot of reviews, Linus Tech, and did an amazing job, and but it's true that it's hard for us to most consumers have been abused by cable, and you're like, we were just trying to make it simple for you, right? So sometimes some people say, hey, but why you don't need a cable? I just want to have maybe like an accessory that will just do it. But the only problem is to market it, to explain to consumer, the concept of filter and so on is not necessarily trivial, So, but from the overall feedback we're getting from the industry, it's very encouraging. I think it's just a question of time, and people will start to realize that, hey, I can get better gaming experience, a better movie experience by simply upgrading my filters, and go and knock at the door of Marseille, and they've got what you're looking for.
Very good. Now, it's hard for us to really describe how impressive the technology is and everything verbally, right? It's a little difficult because we're talking about a very visual product. But the fact of the matter is, these actually do work. People will look online and they'll look at monster cables and things like that, and they'll look at all these other cables. Like you said, we've been abused over the years.
It's like it's a joke. And before doing engineering, I did physics, so it doesn't help, right? For me, it's like it really pressed my button when, I think I agree with you. It's been abused. Way.
So with that in mind, and how difficult it is to really describe how these cables perform, what is it that you envision as like the best method for people to really see the difference in the visual enhancements that they get? Because a lot of people are looking online at Amazon's, at the websites, to try to find out what they're going to buy for cables. What do you think is the best way to reach that audience to show them the best?
I think there's two. It depends the content, the application. But for example, because we have the gaming edition versus the cinema edition, and it's not like some marketing fluff where you change the color of the connector and it becomes gaming. It's really that.
Right.
I tell you, it's a business. We need to make money, and of course, I always have a hard time with our shareholders, and I need to. But it's we don't joke with this, right? The difference between the cinema and the gaming is really the signal processor. The processing that we do, the algorithm, how we're going to handle the content, and so on, right? But if you are telling me, I really want to be able to quickly see that this thing works for me. A no-brainer demo is if I happen to have a DVD disc, for example, right? If I have a DVD player or Blu-ray and I put a DVD disc, if I set up the player to output the resolution of the disc itself, which is like 480p in US, 500,000 pixels, and I plug the mCable, I can tell you, you really have to be blind not to see the difference, right? Or, for example, even better, you take a DVD disc and you turn on the subtitle and you set it up to out 480p, mCable is going to scale it to Super HD, 1080p enhanced, and if you see literally every single pixel getting redrawn one by one, and it becomes obvious, right? Another demo, what I look at, I've got a Roku box at home, and the Roku box, funny because it will ask you to set up the output resolution of the Roku box based on the resolution of your TV, right? Unfortunately, I mean, the more you understand the video, the more you will appreciate mCable and the technology behind it. But because it's counterintuitive. If you have a Roku box, you're going to try to set up your Roku box to output the highest resolution. And actually, it's a big mistake because the Roku box, if you know that 99% of the content that is coming into your house over the network is at best a 720p, a native 720p signal, if you set up your Roku box to output HD or 4K, the signal you're getting is not. It's a really fake 4K, it's a mediocre 4K, or it's a mediocre Full HD. So what I do is I set up the Roku box to output 720p, and I let mCable do the magic. And once you start to see what it does, you launch the YouTube browser, you launch anything, and you will be able to. It's hard not to. Once you get hooked up to it and you get used to it, it's very hard to go back. You know? So that's one. Then if you have more, so those are like the very quick way to be able to see that, really the processing. The other one is like if you're more picky, because some people, the thing is that what people don't understand, I always give that example, is imagine we meet and you remember the old good days where when we take a picture, we print the picture, right? It was not digital, right? So imagine if you, if I take a picture of you, right? And, I cut it in half. I give you half of the picture. I mean, you're going to tell me, say, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this, right? But the reality, half of the picture is enough for your brain to know that it's you, isn't it? So what's happening is in the digital world, every day, every year, we are rediscovering that we actually can see more than what we thought we could see, right? So very good example is like you go on top of a building, you go like how many times you see a beautiful scenery and you want to capture it on your latest and greatest iPhone, and once it's come up on the screen on the iPhone, it looks like plastic. It's not what you felt, right? So basically what's happening is the brain is constantly adjusting to what you see, and to us, enhancing every single pixel, it's what gets you, once you get used, once you start to discover what you were not seeing before, that's it. You're like, give me a break. I mean, this is what I need, right? So to demo like the DVD, the streaming, and the in-Z one, now if you're a little bit more used to content, and you love movies and so on, you take even a Blu-ray 1080p 24, for example, on a 4K TV, and you let the mCable do the job. If you pay attention to everything which is film grain, so both of them, they're going to look beautiful. They're going to go because Blu-ray is so much better than an average HD signal. But if you have experience with content, you're going to be able to quickly start to appreciate what mCable does, even on high-res content, right? On gaming, what I love is obviously, there's a lot of review that have been done, but a quick way is like, you can either take, especially if you have like an older game console, like an Xbox 360 or so on. I mean, it's like, and you set up the console to output 720p because most of the game are in 720p native. Then the result is on the Jaggies are, spectacular. Or lately, a lot of people have noticed serious enhancement on the Switch, for example, Nintendo Switch, So there are like trivial ways. Now, what we do when sometimes like sometimes you have people that are like, what's hard for consumers, like, you had a TV, you had video working, you remove the HDMI cable, you put the mCable, and our job is not to change the color of the video for the sake of changing. So sometimes if you're not used to it the first time and you're not like in a demo mode setup, you're like, I'm not sure if this cable works, right? Because you were watching video before and you're watching video, but it's just a question of, starting to pay attention. And once your brain starts to pick up all the flows from the past, it's hard to go back.
Now, talking specifically a little bit about the gaming edition of the cable, a lot of people are concerned when it comes to lag and the response rate for when they input their movement in the controller to when it shows on the screen. With the processing, some people may assume that there's going to be lag delays because of this.
Correct.
Is that the case?
No, that is not the case, but it's a very important question, actually. So first of all, as you know, so the short answer is like the entire processing done per frame is sub 1 millisecond. So which means that pretty much you have no lag time, no latency added. Okay, and this is why again it's obviously it's not a cable. It's like you have a supercomputer hardware acceleration homemade that we sneaked inside the HDMI cable connector, which is crazy, right? So all these things doesn't add a lag time. But what's interesting is this is another great feature that mCable does, is that if like a lot of the gamers, I don't consider myself a gamer. I come more from the movie industry. My son is a better gamer than me, right? Just to be completely transparent here. But what I noticed is I've got this amazing 4K TV at home that I love for movie more than anything else, right? And he religiously refused to play gaming on it because of the latency. Because all these fancy TV, you probably remember at one point in time, a lot of the TV manufacturers started to create this game mode on TV, right? The idea of game mode was because the signal processing, required to make the picture quality of the TV look decent, unfortunately, it's adding a huge amount of latency. Like, for example, if you take any TV that has FRC, turn on the frame rate conversion, this could be a complete disaster. So the moment you turn on the game mode, you disable most of the enhancement that the TV has, right? So what we did, which is quite spectacular actually, is that we give you all this enhancement, whether it's contrast, jaggy, scaling, noise reduction, you name it, and all this without adding latency. And as a matter of fact, we even have it was an interesting experience that I experienced myself, and I was shocked. I don't like to say it too loud because it goes against the flow, but Sony was demonstrating 4K at Paris Games Week, right? I'm based in Silicon Valley, but I just happened to be attending Paris Games Week for the first time this year, and we wanted to test the mCable. I mean, somebody asked me to plug the mCable in one of their suites, and they were showing the PS4 outputting 4K content, and it was looking good, right? And we plugged the mCable, and okay, fine, it's still okay, no problem. But then we did an experiment which was interesting. We actually forced the PS4 to output 1080p instead of 4K, and let mCable do its magic, right? And actually, what ended up happening, the Super HD enhanced by mCable 1080p coming out of the PS4 was looking better than the native rendered 4K by the PS4. And I could not believe my eyes. And I was like completely, it was a trade show, so you're like, what happened, what's going on, because, the reality is, it's not all about resolution. It's also about the pixels themselves. So, the hardware, any graphics chips, we are constantly, there's a trade-off between the speed, the frame rate, the resolution itself, and the definition of the pixel. And what we tend to forget very often is I can get you a highest resolution with a lower pixel definition. And in other words, imagine I can get you a 4K that is more compressed than an HD signal, and HD will look better than a 4K. Mm-hmm. And that's where Marseille does amazing things. But again, it's I promise you, Nathan, the more you understand the video, the more you will be able to appreciate what we do. But as a consumer, we're really trying to make it plug and play, But like any other product, by design, there are limitations, right? I don't know. We talk a lot about what you do. It's impressive. But there's certain limitation that due to the HDMI spec that I wish that in the future I'm looking forward to resolve. Like for example, unfortunately, the chip itself from HDMI compliance is not able to support, HDCP 2.2,
Okay.
right? So unfortunately, by design, imagine we're here trying to enhance content. So when we architected the chip, the mission was assuming that if you're going to have some 4K native content, and Hollywood decided to encrypt it with HDCP 2.2, is not going to require enhancement for a while, until the brain starts to be used to it, right? So the chip itself is not supporting that mode. So those are kind of like, to me, that's what I love about this technology. That's what I love about what we do. And the idea behind it is that to constantly, hopefully every year or every 2 years, come up with, better and better and better and better. You follow me?
Yeah, I mean, always striving forward for greater, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And, and we don't, I'm telling you again, is if there's something we're not good at, it's marketing. So when you get a guy who say, well, you said it's 4K, it's not 4K, I'm like, shit. Out of my French, but it's like, come on, man, this is really not what we want to, But I mean, as the company grow, I hope that eventually we'll get some marketing guys who does a better job at communicating. But as long as they don't abuse it, I will be fine. That's all.
Right. So, as talking about ideal use case scenarios for the gaming and for the cinema, what would the ideal use case scenario be for a source and a display for both the gaming and the cinema editions?
Wow. That's, I would say clearly, it's really hard to, it's a little bit hard to answer because, clearly all the legacy, anything which is HD and below resolution, it's the perfect source of content to take advantage of mCables, right? So anything that is going to output, either a true 1080p, a true 720p, a true 480p will be ideal for mCable. And in terms of display, honestly, whether it's 720p, whether it's a 1080p TV or 4K TV, it's really good. Now, the higher the pixel definition of the TV is, the more you're going to be able to appreciate the difference because you'll be able to see, more, right? Like, for example, if you take an OLED, and it's crazy because it's counterintuitive. You take an OLED, beautiful TV, as long as you feed perfect content. The moment you feed, the LG OLED, I love that TV, frankly speaking, but the moment you feed it with real-world content, it's no longer looking perfect, right? So I think that it's more about the source itself. Anything below Full HD will really take advantage of mCable. After that, it's not designed for it.
So if somebody has a let's say an Xbox One X connected to a 4K display, this may not be the best solution for them. Correct.
If they output native 4K, it's not optimal. If they output 1080p, then you're starting to enjoy the benefits. And it's and then again, it really the issue the challenge that we have sometimes is you have those devices coming on the market, but actually they don't really, like, for example, the example of the PS4, where the PS4 struggle to give you the output is going to be 4K, but the reality, it will be a better 1080p signal than a 4K signal because the graphics card will do a better job in rendering a perfect 1080p than an average 4K. Right? Okay. The other detail that I think it's important to mention, one thing that is also really cool with mCable, I've got some gamers, who've done some testing and saying it's actually pretty cool for, we were talking about latency earlier, but any game that require, faster response time, actually one of the things that people started to experimenting is you lower the resolution of the console and you basically get a higher resolution because of mCable, but you actually get a higher a better response time because the console itself is not, have more time to render the content at a lower resolution than higher resolution. So you can increase the speed basically of the response time by lowering the resolution, but since you have mCable without sacrificing picture quality.
Okay, makes sense.
That's pretty powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, very powerful. I know we're running low on time here, and I appreciate the time that you've given us so far. But just two more quick questions for you. So, obviously, we have the Cinema Edition and the Gaming Edition. So there's two different cables that serve two different purposes. But do you envision an ultimate cable that could serve both?
100%. I would love to. And we also maybe not even a cable itself, right? But for sure. It's just that it's unfortunately, what's missing, what would be ideal is that if we could have a protocol even in HDMI where you could really read what was the native resolution, the native resolution of the content, that will really simplify that challenge. Because right now what is really hard is, you're doing blind processing, you're getting content, and to auto-detect that actually the source itself is not, it's more gaming versus cinema, it can get pretty hectic, But there's no doubt that the bare minimum that I would like to see is to allow the consumer to select the mode, whether it's in game mode and movie mode, and ideally it goes all the way to auto-detect.
Oh, that'd be great. Finally, for you, is there anything in the pipeline for enhancing 4K content? So talking about that Xbox One X to the 4K display earlier, would there be anything in the pipeline that you're looking to enhance there?
100% with you. In our lab, we've got some amazing technology cooking, where we take 4K in and the 4K is coming out. It's so much better. Yeah. No.
That sounds...
I know. The only challenge, Nathan, is really, it's not very easy to build to fund research, right? So you got to have a good balance of and launching the product at the right time and so on. So, from an underlying technology in our lab, absolutely. Now, from a product timing, we really need to we need to, it's not an obvious, it's not very clear yet when will we make the optimal, the best time for us to launch a product like that,
Right. Makes sense. Well, is there anything final you'd like to say for our listeners?
Thank you so much. Please spread the word. I really appreciate your time and the listener time. And if there's any question, please check out Marseille, like the French city, MarseilleInc.com, and we love what we do and we will love to hear from you.
All right. Thank you again for your time, Amni. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Take care, Nathan. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.